Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's great to have you here at the Results Mastery Podcast. My name is Steve Mills, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to be more effective in your business, how to grow that business, increase sales, and generally do better. I appreciate your time in being here. I'm really excited today to have Ben Rayner from Strategic Sherpas with me, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a moment. Just before I do, just a reminder to, if you've not already subscribed to the podcast, to do so. If you're watching this on YouTube, then again, don't forget to subscribe to that. And the reason being that I want people to try to connect with me so that I can help even more people to be more successful, more easily, and more often. So bringing Ben into the conversation, thank you ever so much for your time, Ben. I really appreciate it. Tell everybody a little bit about you, your company, and what you do, because it's a fascinating subject.
Morning, Steve, and thanks for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure.
It's great to be on. So as you rightly pointed out, I'm Ben Rayner. I've worked with in excess of 50 leadership teams across many sectors to fix what's actually costing their businesses time, money, and again, when we work in more regulated environments, risk. So most of the people I work with know exactly what's wrong. Leadership dashboards taking ages to complete, teams spending hours reconciling data, for instance, that should be automated, or delayed decisions because no one's really sure of which version of the truth, if you like, to trust. So the challenge for the leaders that I work with isn't really awareness. It's knowing what to fix first and how to do it without creating more disruption. And ultimately, that's what I help people do. So it'll be going into an organization, looking at 3 to 5 operational bottlenecks that is potentially driving costs, slowing decisions, increasing risk, and then I work with them to fix those issues in their businesses. And most businesses, as you sort of pointed out before, are under pressure at the moment to do more with less. And AI promises that that efficiency, but most leaders, they just don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it safely. They don't know which is the first bit to do first, and that's hopefully some of that we'll be able to share
Will
with
be.
people today, and they can go away and they can implement and they can trial some of these things, and probably like most leaders, they're probably listening to this podcast on one device and they're probably working on another device as we speak. So
Sure.
I promise them that we'll give them something practically that they can use. They can use today.
That's fantastic, and I'm really excited to be with you here today and sharing those ideas. I always believe, when people like you and I, Ben, ask for people's time, which we are doing now, it's really important to make sure that you add value, isn't it? Because we're all incredibly busy. We've got things we should be doing when we're listening to this podcast, and yet we can get enormous value, and we'll no doubt endeavor to deliver that. So, as a kickoff question, then, Ben, AI. I think you're going to have lived on Mars to have never heard of AI. So most people sort of know what it is. They're sort of using it. But give people a sort of non-techie overview of it. And I think we were talking earlier about one of the biggest problems with AI or with technology, with digital marketing, or most things I think these days in the world, any piece of software, is that we don't know what we don't know. So I suppose it's a two-pronged question, really. What is AI? Let's say, what is AI, and why should people embrace it right now?
Um, so I guess the first thing is AI has actually been around for quite a long time,
Yeah.
and because it's been baked into your every day, if you like, you know what you've been doing every day. You may not know that you've actually been using it. So if anyone's been using biometrics to open their phone, your fingerprint or your face, that's AI at play. If you've got a social media account, that's probably one of the biggest AI experiments on the planet. So it's the way I would always describe it, which probably seems slightly absurd to people, is AI is not intelligent. you are intelligent. Okay.
Okay.
So it's really, really important that we understand and we distinguish what AI is. And I think AI has come to the fore at the moment because of these things called LLMs, or large language models, which is effectively, if you like, shortcutted what we needed before to be able to use it, which is, people who are able to code and people who are able to develop software. And now actually the power's in the consumer's hands, and they're able to touch it, feel it, play with it, and they're able to see this stuff called AI, if you like.
Yeah.
So AI is ultimately, it uses data and it
Yeah.
uses algorithms. And what it does is it simulates human cognition. So when you go on your LLM, yeah, what you're actually doing is pattern recognition. It's seen that conversation, it's seen those association of words millions and millions of times before, and it predicts what's the next best word after that. So it's not going out and searching the internet live when you're on your LLM. It's actually pulling from a preset data field, which is why you'll hear all these conversations about ethics that circle around at the moment.
Yeah.
And there are different flavors of AI, Steve. So there's different flavors of it as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff that's been going on for ages, things like robotics. So if you think about a warehouse, think about Amazon warehouses, where a robot is automatically stocking shelves. It's not because the robot's clever. It's because the robot is working within a set of parameters. It's set to go to here, set to go to there. It understands the inputs and it knows what it needs to execute and respond to based on that. And then you've got things like machine learning, which is effectively pattern recognition at scale. And that's where AI is amazing, because it can do things that you and I can't. It can recognize huge data sets and pull together insights. But I still believe that we need the expert. So we still need the human in the loop. We still
Yeah.
need that piece in the loop. And when I talk to leadership teams, I would always talk to leadership teams and their organizations at the moment about AI being an enhancement of the human.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point, because there's a lot of scaremongering, or feeling of, oh, AI is going to ruin my business, it's going to take my job, it's going to. But listening to some of the experts that I try to do, hence being here today, I suppose, is people say AI is great, but so are humans, and it's that combination of the two that produce the great results that AI helps us humans to produce.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of a perfect storm when it comes to hype. I think,
Yeah,
if you read the headlines, they're quite sensational.
yeah,
They're there to drive a particular agenda in some instances. So that if it, I put a post out about this the other day. It was about people ploughing fields by hand.
okay,
So if you were to plough a 2.5 acre field by hand, one person, it would take you about 60 days. Then the tractor came along and you could do that same level of work in a day.
uh,
So uh, the human was still needed,
yeah.
but they were needed in a different
A really
capacity.
good analogy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get
So
that. Yeah,
the human's still there, still in the loop, still required. And look, I'm not saying that certain industries aren't going to disappear, because they may disappear in time. But as it stands today, there's, teams are worried because, like you said, they're going to lose their jobs. And I think we should think about this more in terms of, what can I do more of that I really like, I really enjoy. So if you say to a team of people, give me two, three things that you do in your working day or working week that you would delegate to somebody else, I bet people give you like three, four,
yeah.
five.
Answering
They're often,
emails and yeah,
yeah,
you name it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and they're often the things that are predictable and repeatable. And if
yeah,
they're predictable and repeatable, the possibility and the probability is we could use large language models or AI to take that away from you, and then you can do the stuff you really enjoy, potentially the creative stuff or whatever it might be. So I think ignoring it is not a great strategy, and pretending it's going to go away, because it's not. I
no,
think we need to embrace it, but we need to embrace it in a way that's sensible, if you like, and practical for the business, and think about the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, yeah, great advice. I was listening to Alex Armosi the other day. If you've not heard of him, he's like a leading business advisor, coach sort of guy, and he was saying that there's a strong feeling about as I mentioned AI is going to take our job or our business. And he said, no, that's not the case. What might happen is somebody that knows and understands AI might take your job, if you sit back and don't. So really, I suppose the question about why should you use AI, it's sort of answered really, isn't it? It's almost like you've got to. It's like, why should you bother using a tractor, I always remember. Do you remember the old cartoon with the guys? There was like a battle. It was a cartoon I remember seeing in a newspaper, and the guys are firing bow and arrows, and somebody turns up with this Gatling gun, behind them, and they're going, "What's that?" So we've not got time to learn how to use that gun. We're too busy firing bows and arrows. And it's the same thing, isn't it? Really, yeah. So
Yeah, and I think there's quite a few people who've been saying that. If I'm honest with you, Steve, AI isn't going to take over your business, but businesses using AI will go past you, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because AI will provide operational efficiencies. It can provide value creation at the same time. I think the other flip side to this, and I was talking about this on a webinar that I was running yesterday for UNITAR, the United Nations Training Institute. I talked about the value risk seesaw. So we're all looking for value. We're all looking to create value through AI, but inadvertently, sometimes we're creating risk, and that seesaw's tipping.
yeah,
And, the example I've used now is vibe coding allows us all to be able to create websites or create things that maybe we weren't able to create before, which is amazing and works really, really well.
yeah,
However, that will also expose you to risk, because perhaps the code that you've created has a backdoor to it that maybe creates vulnerabilities. So if you're collecting data on there, does that open that up? And I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, because everyone's got different abilities. What
sure.
I'm saying is we just need to be aware of that risk value seesaw when we're using this technology.
Yeah. One thing that sort of strikes me about it, whilst I'm a massive advocate, I love AI, I think it's brilliant. It's almost like, every week there's a new AI, and every week the AI that you've been using for X amount of months is now changed, and it's much better, and it does this and that and the other. What are your thoughts around, I suppose, what AIs would you advise somebody who's running a business? What do we need to look at? I can recall myself, getting on ChatGPT and thinking, "Oh, this is incredible! It does all this, it's brilliant." And then I was like learning stuff every week. Oh, it did that as well. I didn't know that. And now I think I told you the other day when we spoke, I'm using Manus, and it's Manus AI. And I know there's lots of other systems that are probably equally good, if not better. But Manus has just like blown ChatGPT away, in my opinion, at least. It's incredible. So what are the best things to look out for in terms of AI? I suppose it's down to what do you want to, what's the end result that you're wanting to try to achieve. But yeah, over to you, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I get quite frequently, like
Yeah,
which tools should we be using?
yeah.
And you've just highlighted the problem with it
What
just right
kind?
there, which is that there is,
Yeah,
yeah, there's just so much choice.
yeah,
There is endless amounts of choice.
yeah,
There is, for want of a better word, there's an arms race on at the moment
yeah,
for, who can basically steal market share. And it's very similar to what we've seen in previous technology shifts, where I mean, I don't know if you remember the sort of arms race for internet browsing. You know, so we had Google, we had things like Firefox, we had Mozilla, we Internet Explorer, and we're in a similar place now, Steve, where they're constantly jostling with one another, and they all do different things ever so slightly better, or maybe not, you know, not so different. I think what we're going to see probably in the next 12 months is a bit of a maybe a bit of a leveling out in that capacity. And you know, if you think about Copilot, that obviously integrates really well with Microsoft, and therefore for a lot of businesses that feels like a bit of a tick box exercise because they feel it's secure, they've already signed up to it. So from an IT security perspective, that's a pretty easy win. Then you've got some of the platforms that you spoke about, which are more nuanced, Manus, Lovable, all of these types of platforms. And then you've got probably the more retail end of the market. You've got your Claudes, your Open AIs, your Perplexities, your Groks, but they all do slightly different things, and there's slightly different flavors within that same platform. And you know, Claude Code, for instance, is almost becoming a bit industry standard in that capacity. But if I was, for anyone listening at the moment, if I was going to advise them to do anything, I would advise them just to stop, because AI is just a tool, right? So my first port of call with all organizations is actually to think about the problem we're trying to solve first, then build a business case. And once we've built a business case, then we can look at the tooling. Okay. So it's a bit like going out to buy a car. What car are you going to buy? Well, you're probably making decisions in your mind. You know, I've got a family, got two kids, I've got a dog. So already the size of your vehicle is defined. Yeah, it's defined, but it's defined by the parameters of what you're looking for. And it's the same in business. We need to be thinking about the problem or problems that we're looking to solve. You know, what's costing us time in our organization at the moment? What is really slowing us down? What's stopping us reaching clients? How can we create more value in our organization? And then road mapping that and try to decide what is going to create greatest impact in your organization. What is the thing that's going to give you greatest impact? And I learned a very valuable lesson nearly 2 years ago when we were working with a large pharmaceutical company, and we wanted to take them on this program. We wanted to identify them, but the leader in this instance, in this enterprise business, was dead set on creating a pilot in one specific space. Okay. And against our advice, that's what they wanted to do, and we did that. One of his team then got moved sideways, and another person came in replacement of that person. And the first question they asked us was, why are you running the pilot on that? And why are you not running it on this? And my first question back was, why shouldn't we be running it on this? And why do you want to run it on that? And he said, because there's 10 times more people in our organization who use that.
Right.
And therefore, the case study we created inside that organization could have been 10 times more powerful for the business.
Yeah.
Had we done it on that. And that is, so to stop and actually run and build a roadmap and say, right, what is going to give us biggest impact in the organization? How many people does it affect? What's the business case? Where are we going to save time? Where are we going to improve our margins? Where are we going to create additional value? They're the important bits. They're the bits that we need to grab hold of. Yeah. Then build a business case and calculate what that looks like. And then you can look at tooling it and deciding which one you're going to do and how you're going to run the pilot program.
Do you know, that's such good advice. And I've got to say, and I know lots of people listening will have done it the total opposite way around. I thought, oh, Manus, let's have a look at that. Oh, yeah, it's brilliant. And then you go, right, what am I going to do with it? Oh, I can build a website. I can build an app. I can do this, and I can do, oh, this is great, without actually, taking the time, as you suggested, to think about what do I need to do to grow my business, and how could an AI help me best, and which AI, and so on. And I think this is where people like you come in. if we, the people probably here are sat there going, well, I want to do X, I got this project, or I just know I want to grow my business. How can AI help with that? But I don't know. I don't know which one, and that's why it's important to either A, get the training, or B, seek advice from some, excuse me, from someone like yourself who has got many years experience and know how to advise people and what direction they should go in. So that's
Yeah, and I wouldn't,
really
and I
important.
wouldn't, I wouldn't say doing what you did is a bad thing, Steve. I wouldn't say that going to experiment with Manus or OpenAI or Claude or whatever it might be is a bad thing. I would look at that and I would say that's a great start, right? Because we're starting to experiment and use the tools and try and understand them. So
Yeah,
therefore, we're trying to improve our knowledge base. It's a bit like at the top of your podcast, you started talking about value. But people taking the time out to listen to podcasts, whether it's this, whether it's another podcast, they're hopefully trying to enrich themselves with information that's going to improve them as an individual or their organization. So there's value in sitting down and stopping and listening to a podcast. I'm an absolute advocate for learning and developing. And
mm,
it's the same with AI. If people say to me, "Oh, I've missed the boat," you haven't missed the boat. You just haven't missed the boat. Just spend an hour a day playing with these platforms. So
yeah,
spend an hour a day, like you
yeah,
said, checking out what's in the marketplace, reading a book, listening to a podcast.
yeah, yeah. Watching a video,
Yeah,
yeah,
watch a video. Just
yeah,
just try and get a feel for what's going on and have a play with it, and don't be afraid of it, because that is a great place to start. What I wouldn't advocate for, walking into a business and having had this conversation myself, when the leadership team has said we've just purchased an enterprise license for the business of OpenAI, and they're expecting me to say, "Oh, that's brilliant," or something like that. And the first question I ask them is, "What problem are you trying to solve?" And they look at each other blankly and go, "We didn't think about that. That's such a great question."
yeah,
Not impossible to unpick the problem, but there lies the problem, which is, what problem are we trying to solve? And for your listeners out there, go and have a look and search uh, Airbnb's machine learning on imagery. It'll be on YouTube somewhere. I'll try and
okay,
maybe after the show, I'll try and find the link for you. That is a really good practical example of how a business has used AI to be able to solve a problem in their business. So, problem in Airbnb was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of millions of people taking pictures of their own home
yeah,
and then mislabeling them.
right,
So
okay,
how do Airbnb sit there and relabel all these images? How do Airbnb ensure that they've actually shot the kitchen and the kitchen isn't a barbecue, or the lounge isn't just a picture of a chair, it's actually the whole lounge, so that the potential guest can see what the lounge looks like and see whether it's suitable?
yeah, yeah,
And what they built on the off the back of that is quite phenomenal. And it's literally, we talk about watching a video, it's about 5 minutes long, but it gives you a real practical insight where they go, "This is our problem in the business,
yeah,
and this is how we've used machine learning to solve that problem."
yeah, yeah.
And it's fascinating, and that is a really great example for me of machine learning at scale.
Yeah, yeah, makes total sense. Just going back to talking about the importance of learning. One of my favorite books is a book by a guy called Keith J. Cunningham,
Okay.
which is called The Road Less Stupid. Great, great title, I think. And
Yeah.
in it, he said he starts it off like on on the inside of the front page in big letters. It says, "If you want a better business, become a better business owner." And I think that is so, if you want to be able to use this technology, you don't need to be an expert in it, but you need to embrace it. You need to not just become. People go on to. I see it all the time. People tell me, "Oh yeah, yeah, I use AI." Oh really? What do you use? Oh, ChatGPT. Oh, and what do you do with it? And the answer to that is basically not a lot. They use it's almost like in the old days. If you said to me, "Are you any good at using spreadsheets, Steve?" I go, yeah, I'm fine. I've used them for years. Yeah, I'm okay. And you go, you look over my shoulder and you see me doing something, and you say, "How often do you have to do that?" I said, "Well, every day. Normally, it takes me about an hour." And you go, "Well, if you press that button there, it does it in a second." Oh, I didn't know that. And it's the same now, but with AI, it'll do it in a second. Well, not second, but it'll do it a lot quicker than you and I can do it, and save us an amazing amount of time. Or from a obviously my background from a marketing perspective, I can do things quicker, better. But at the same time, I think it's important. Yes, I might get AI to write me a something, a social media post, or a web page or whatever, and then I put my take on it. That's another really important thing, isn't it? You don't just leave it and try. Somebody said to me, I don't know whether you'd agree, but they said treat AI like a new employee. They're really keen. They're not that experienced yet, and they want to do good. But when you brief them, it's important to tell them exactly what you want. And then when they've done it, it's important to double check everything that they've done to make sure they've done it right. Would you still? That was probably a year ago now. So is that still the case, or has AI got that good that you don't need to check it quite so much?
I would say that's really sound advice.
Right.
So you have to remember that we're talking about large language models, right? We're talking about OpenAI, Claude, and we're talking about asking it questions or potentially asking it to produce something for us. And you have to remember that it's generic. It's Gen AI. It's not. It doesn't have the context around who you are, Steve, what your business is, what your brand looks like, how you talk, how you act, who you serve. It doesn't have any of that context. So unless you give it that context, it's going to give you some form of generic output out the back end. And you have to also bear in mind, my belief is the large language models are there to build a relationship with you.
Mm.
Okay, they're there to flatter you, and
Mm.
if you
Yeah.
only have to put something in, and it says, "Steve, that
A
sounds amazing."
brilliant idea, that is. Yeah.
Yeah, what a cracking idea. Oh, would you like me to help you do this, or what about this idea? And again, that yeah, so they're there to build a relationship with you. So that's the first watch out. The second watch out is how you prompt the LLM at the moment will determine the type of outcome you get. So if you've got your, let's say, your OpenAI, your ChatGPT open, and you're tapping something away, and you give it some vague instructions, it's going to give you a fairly generic outcome. There are lots and lots of different ways to prompt, and one of the ways is to actually get it to think and challenge its thinking. So one of the ways you can do that is actually treat it like, so if I was going to put a document in there, I'd say, look, Steve's given me this document, right? And I need to give Steve some feedback on this document. And I would then ask it more science-based questions. So what's great about what Steve's produced? How can I give him really specific feedback on what to improve on? How is that how is this shaped, and does this align to behavioral economics? How can we really ensure that this type of audience resonates with what Steve's produced? And by doing that, what it will do is it will go into a deeper thinking mode and start challenging what I've written or what it thinks it's doing, which is analyzing my work, thinking it's your work, Steve,
Yeah.
and actually coming out with what I call assessment mode prompting.
Right.
And there's other types of prompting as well. I listened to a guy recently, he talked about, he had a GRIP methodology, so GRIP, and that was make sure you write about the goal, what you're trying to achieve, the role of the person, so what is the LLM? I want them to be like Seth Godin, the marketeer. I want them to be a pricing expert, because actually this is all about pricing. I is the instruction. So give it really detailed instructions about exactly what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, what you're looking for. And then the P is the product. what is the product you're looking as an output? Is it a deck? Is it a PDF? Is it a Word document? Is it an email? Is it a script? I'm about to go on a telephone call, and actually this is a sales discovery call, and that's the output I'm looking for. And the more specific you can get in that, the more specific the outcomes you'll get. And there are heaps of others.
Yeah.
Um, there's Socratic prompting, and there's loads more. There's
Can I
lots more.
just ask? I was busy writing it down there. What was the R?
That was role.
Roll.
So what's who do you want? Who do you want that? What role are they playing? Is it a
Thank you.
chief marketing officer? Is it a copywriter? Potentially name check somebody if you like their writing style, or you think they offer you a differing opinion or view, and that way you can help. And look, the models are shifting all the time. So what I've said today might not be relevant tomorrow.
No, no, that's
So this
somebody
is
listening to this in 6 months' time might go, "What?
yeah,
You said that? That was
yeah.
no longer the case. It's like this. So yeah, you have to appreciate that, don't you?"
Yeah, and it is moving all the time, but again, the principles at the moment are still the same. That you talked about new employees. It is a new employee. It's got no you're not. It's not an expert.
No.
You haven't turned it into an expert. So unless you're going to turn your LLM into an expert, you're going to get generic feedback.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Do you know what, Ben? I could talk to you all day, but we haven't got time, and I want to be respectful of your time. So, on behalf of everybody listening, thank you for your wisdom, ideas, and thoughts. What I'd like to ask you, Ben, is, as I said partway through this, if you want to take this seriously, it's really important to get some good advice. And I know that within your company, that's what you do, that's what you specialize in. So, what I'd like you to do is to invite you to tell people if they want to hear more from you, what do they do, where do they go, how do they get in touch, please? And
Yeah, well,
what can you do for them as well?
yeah. So if you want to get in touch with me, just check me out on LinkedIn. You can book directly into my diary. It's free to talk to me, so feel free to just book in. You can email me as well at ben.rayner@strategicsherpas.com. And every business is unique, so there is no cookie cutter approach to this. So typically with organizations, we typically start with some form of diagnostic workshop because we need to understand what the problem is. Remember, we spoke about that
Yeah,
right at the
yeah,
start.
yeah,
And then once we've built that diagnostic, then we can go into a pilot. And because, as you pointed out, Steve, AI is accelerating everything we can do. We can actually achieve results relatively quickly, and then we can go into something deeper and wider. If that you feel that is something you want to do, you may decide that now I've got the roadmap, I'm just going to do it all myself, and that's fine too. So that's typically the path, Steve.
brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Really appreciate your time, and I've certainly learned something, and I'm sure everybody else has. So that's just about it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting, but most of all, I hope you use the ideas that you've learned because that's why we're here. It's about application of knowledge. I always remember Tony Robbins saying that knowledge is a waste of time. The application of knowledge is everything. So that's a final thought to leave you with today. If you want to know more from me, go to my website, results-mastery.com. If you want to meet up, there's a gold button on there. Just click that and we can arrange to meet and talk about all things marketing and digital marketing. Thank you very much for listening.